We're staying here. Those were the defiant words Ellen DeGeneres spoke just months ago, standing on British soil, declaring her permanent escape from Donald Trump's America. But today, breaking news reveals a stunning reversal that nobody saw coming. For decades, celebrities have threatened to leave America over political outcomes. Barbra Streisand, Cher, Whoopi Goldberg, the list reads like a Hollywood who's who of empty promises. Some actually followed through. But what happens when the reality of their new life doesn't match the virtue-signaling fantasy? What happens when the cold, gray British winter replaces California sunshine? And what happens when your best friend, Meghan Markle, is waiting back in Montecito with open arms and a knowing smile that says, "I told you so"? What did Ellen and her wife, Portia de Rossi, really want? Was it political principle, or simply the grass looking greener on the other side of the Atlantic? And why would anyone voluntarily move to the very country that Meghan Markle had painted as cold, racist, and unbearable? Join us as we uncover the shocking story of Hollywood's most publicized reverse migration, the unraveling of a celebrity exodus, and how Ellen DeGeneres became the perfect mirror image of the very royal scandal that rocked Britain just 5 years ago. This is the tale of the reverse Megxit, where virtue meets reality, and reality wins. It all began quietly, with whispers among California friends and a revealing report that would expose the truth behind Ellen's grand British adventure. On a cold December morning in 2024, the Mail on Sunday broke the story that would send shockwaves through both Hollywood and the Cotswolds. Journalist Caroline Graham revealed what insiders had been murmuring for weeks. Ellen DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi were planning their return to sunny California, abandoning their British dream after barely one winter. The headline was brutal in its simplicity, and the details even more damning. The timing was unmistakable, almost laughably so. Just weeks earlier, in November 2024, Ellen had stood firm in her conviction, her jaw set, her eyes blazing with righteous determination. When Donald Trump won the presidential election on November 5, 2024, Ellen and Portia had made headlines worldwide with their dramatic response. According to sources close to the couple, they had arrived in England the day before the election, unpacking their suitcases in their Cotswolds mansion while Americans headed to the polls. The morning of November 6, 2024, their phones exploded with messages. Texts filled with crying emojis flooded in from their American friends, each one a digital wail of despair. Ellen's response was immediate and very public. "He got in? We're staying here." It wasn't just a private decision. It was a declaration, a political statement wrapped in personal choice, delivered with the kind of theatrical finality that only a former talk show host could muster. The media ate it up. Headlines celebrated Ellen's brave stance. Progressive outlets praised her commitment to principle over comfort. She became, overnight, the celebrity who actually followed through. The one who didn't just talk about leaving but actually left. But by early December 2024, barely a month later, a very different story was emerging from their inner circle. The carefully constructed narrative was crumbling, and the truth was far less heroic. Ellen was adamant that she and Portia were going to stay in the UK while Trump was in the White House. A source told the Mail on Sunday, speaking with the careful anonymity of someone who knows they're revealing uncomfortable truths. But evidently she's changed her mind somewhat. She's been telling friends they are coming home soon because they miss them and can't take the winters over there. And Portia wants to act again. They will be here for the holidays and longer by the sound of it. The revelation was deeply personal, coming not from official statements or carefully managed press releases, but from private conversations that slowly leaked into the public consciousness. These were the real confessions, the ones Ellen was making over wine with close friends, the admissions of someone who had made a spectacular miscalculation and was now trying to figure out how to retreat with some dignity intact. The source continued with striking, almost brutal candor. They missed the warm weather and their friends. 7 simple words that carried the weight of a failed social experiment, a virtue signal that had crashed against the rocks of British reality. Not they miss contributing to British society or they miss being part of a new community. No, they missed the weather and their friends. It was the most California reason imaginable for abandoning a political principle. Another insider added more detail. painting a picture of two women who had gone from triumphant to trapped in record time. Ellen was very clear that they're coming back to California sooner rather than later. They miss the warm weather and their friends. The repetition of these themes, warmth, friendship, comfort, revealed everything about what had really motivated the move in the first place and what was now pulling them back. What made this discovery particularly fascinating, even delicious for Ellen's critics, was its timing. The couple had only just moved into their second British property, a hilltop mansion with enough land to accommodate Portia's beloved horses. This wasn't a casual visit gone wrong or a holiday that had overstayed its welcome. This was a full commitment, complete with sold American properties, purchased British estates, relocated animals, and public declarations of permanent departure. They had burned bridges, made statements, and staked their reputations on this decision. And now, they were quietly preparing to slink back. The discovery process itself was revealing. Caroline Graham, a journalist known for her royal family coverage, had clearly been tipped off by multiple sources. This wasn't a single disgruntled employee or an axe-grinding former friend. This was a coordinated leak from people close enough to know Ellen's real feelings, people who were either concerned about her or tired of maintaining the fiction that everything was wonderful. The story that Graham uncovered wasn't just about celebrity hypocrisy, though that angle was certainly present and gleefully seized upon by conservative commentators. It was about the genuine challenge of transplanting a California lifestyle to the English countryside, about missing the social networks that had defined their lives for decades, and about the sobering realization that political theater and daily living are two very different things. British tabloids, never ones to miss an opportunity for schadenfreude at celebrity expense, ran with the story. But what was interesting was how even progressive outlets struggled to defend Ellen. The optics were simply too bad. A wealthy celebrity who had made a grand political gesture retreating at the first sign of discomfort. It played into every negative stereotype about Hollywood elites that they're performative, superficial, and fundamentally disconnected from the principles they claim to hold. Social media response was swift and merciless. Twitter, now X, erupted with commentary. One British winter and Ellen DeGeneres is running back to California. Commitment level, 0, wrote one user, garnering thousands of likes. Another quipped, Ellen lasted in Britain longer than Liz Truss lasted as PM, so there's that. The memes were brutal, the commentary scathing, and Ellen's team maintained a studied silence. Oliver London, a British influencer and commentator known for his outrageous takes, broke the news to his substantial following. Ellen DeGeneres backtracks on staying in the UK while Trump is president after missing the warm weather and lifestyle in California. His tone was gleeful, his satisfaction palpable. Here was proof, served on a silver platter, that celebrity political grandstanding was exactly as hollow as critics had always claimed. The discovery revealed layers of truth that Ellen probably wished had remained buried. First, that her move to Britain had never really been about principle, it was about making a statement. Second, that she fundamentally misunderstood what living in Britain actually entailed. Third, that Meghan Markle, for all her controversy, had actually been right about one thing. Britain was really hard for a California celebrity to adjust to. Most damning of all, the discovery showed that Ellen had lasted exactly one British winter before capitulating, not 4 years of Trump's presidency, as her statement suggested, not even one full year in Britain. One winter? That's all it took to break the resolve of someone who had publicly declared that staying in America under Trump was simply impossible. To understand how Ellen DeGeneres ended up in this predicament, caught between political posturing and personal comfort, we need to rewind the clock and examine the journey that brought her from Hollywood queen to British countryside exile and ultimately to her hasty retreat. Ellen Lee DeGeneres rose to fame in the 1990s as a groundbreaking comedian and actress, building a career on observational humor and likable every-person charm. But it was on April 30th, 1997, that she made television history when her character came out as gay on her sitcom Ellen, coinciding with her own real life coming out on the cover of Time magazine. The headline read, "Yep, I'm gay." It was a moment of extraordinary courage in an era when such revelations could end careers. Ellen faced immediate backlash. Her show was canceled the following year. She spent years in what she later called career wilderness, unable to land significant roles, watching other comedians she'd mentored surpass her. But Ellen's story wasn't one of defeat. By 2003, she had staged one of Hollywood's most impressive comebacks. The Ellen DeGeneres Show launched on September 8, 2003, and quickly became a phenomenon. For nearly 2 decades, she built an empire on kindness, generosity, and the catchphrase, "Be kind." Her show became a cultural institution, featuring A-list celebrities, heartwarming surprises, and Ellen's signature dance moves that opened every episode to the infectious rhythm of Everybody Dance Now. Her show wasn't just entertainment, it became a daily ritual for millions of Americans. Ellen giving away cars, surprising deserving families with life-changing gifts, bringing celebrities down to earth with her folksy interview style, it all contributed to an image of Ellen as America's best friend, the one who made you laugh and made you believe that people were fundamentally good. On August 16, 2008, Ellen married Australian actress Portia de Rossi in an intimate ceremony at their Beverly Hills home, just months after California legalized same-sex marriage. The wedding made international headlines. The couple became one of Hollywood's most high-profile same-sex marriages, symbols of progress and acceptance in an industry still grappling with representation. Their relationship seemed to embody everything Ellen preached on her show: love, commitment, and the courage to be yourself. Portia de Rossi, born Amanda Lee Rogers on January 31, 1973, in Horsham, Australia, had her own compelling backstory. She had risen to fame through roles in Ally McBeal, Arrested Development, and Scandal, establishing herself as a talented actress capable of both comedy and drama. Her marriage to Ellen represented not just personal happiness but professional partnership, as they began to collaborate on various projects and business ventures. Their life together was the California dream personified in every luxurious detail: multiple properties in exclusive neighborhoods, including homes in Beverly Hills and Montecito, a circle of celebrity friends that read like an entertainment industry directory, including Meghan Markle, Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, and Oprah Winfrey. The kind of wealth that makes relocating to another country seem as simple as booking a plane ticket and hiring movers. They collected properties like some people collect art. By 2024, Ellen and Portia had bought and sold over a dozen homes, flipping high-end real estate with impressive profits. Their eye for property and design became almost as famous as Ellen's show. Architecture Digest featured their homes. They were the ultimate California power couple, defining what success looked like in 21st century America. But by 2020, cracks began appearing in Ellen's carefully constructed image, cracks that would eventually become chasms. In July 2020, former employees of the Ellen DeGeneres Show came forward with allegations of a toxic workplace environment behind the scenes. The accusations were serious and detailed: intimidation, racism, unfair treatment, and a culture of fear that directly contradicted her Be Kind brand. One former employee told BuzzFeed News that Be Kind bullshit only happens when the cameras are on. It's all for show. Another described an environment where staff were fired for taking medical leave or attending family funerals. The stories painted a picture of a workplace where kindness was performance, not principle. The allegations triggered an internal investigation by Warner Media. By August 2020, 3 senior producers had been fired. Ellen issued an apology to her staff in a letter dated July 30, 2020, writing, "On day 1 of our show, I told everyone in our first meeting that the Ellen DeGeneres Show would be a place of happiness, no one would ever raise their voice, and everyone would be treated with respect. Obviously, something changed, and I am disappointed to learn that this has not been the case. But the damage was done." Ellen's reputation, built over decades, had been severely tarnished. The disconnect between her public persona and private behavior became the subject of endless commentary. Late-night comedians, who had previously treated Ellen as untouchable, began including her in their monologues. Social media was merciless. The phrase "be kind" became a mocking catchphrase, used ironically to highlight hypocrisy. The controversy continued to snowball. Reports emerged of Ellen's allegedly demanding behavior with crew members, her rules about staff not speaking to her or making eye contact, her reputation for being cold and difficult behind the scenes. Each new revelation chipped away at the carefully cultivated image. On May 12, 2021, Ellen announced that her talk show would end after its 19th season in 2022. While she framed it as a natural decision, when you're a creative person, you constantly need to be challenged, the subtext was clear. The show had become untenable. Her brand had been permanently damaged. The queen of daytime television was stepping down, her crown tarnished by controversy and changing public sentiment. The final episode of The Ellen DeGeneres Show aired on May 26, 2022, marking the end of an era. Ellen used her closing monologue to reflect on her legacy, focusing on the LGBTQ+ representation her show had provided. But outside her devoted fan base, the prevailing sentiment was more complicated, a mixture of appreciation for what she'd accomplished and disappointment over how it had ended. It was during this period of professional transition and reputation rehabilitation that Ellen and Portia began looking beyond America's borders for a fresh start. They had always been vocal about their political views, supporting Democratic candidates and progressive causes with both their voices and their considerable wealth. When Donald Trump entered politics and eventually won the presidency on November 8, 2016, Ellen was among the many celebrities expressing public dismay. But unlike most celebrity complainers who tweeted their outrage and then continued their lives unchanged, Ellen began seriously considering an actual exit strategy. Trump's first presidency had been turbulent for Hollywood liberals. His second campaign, and his ultimate victory on November 5, 2024, felt like the final straw for Ellen and many of her peers. The couple began exploring options in late 2023 and early 2024. They looked at properties in several countries, but Britain held particular appeal. The United Kingdom offered English language, cultural sophistication, political stability with a Labour government that aligned with their views, and most appealingly, geographical and cultural distance from Trump's America. They were drawn specifically to the Cotswolds, an area of outstanding natural beauty in south-central England. The Cotswolds is Britain at its most picturesque. Rolling hills, honey-colored stone villages straight out of fairy tales, ancient market towns, and a landscape that has inspired poets and artists for centuries. It's also expensive, exclusive, and home to a discreet community of wealthy individuals who value privacy above all else. By early 2024, Ellen and Portia had found their perfect British sanctuary. They purchased Kitesbridge Farm in Swinbrook, Oxfordshire, a stunning 48-acre estate that seemed to promise everything they wanted: privacy, beauty, horses for Portia, space for their dogs, and most importantly, distance from American politics and American media. The property was magnificent by any standard. Built from traditional Cotswold stone, surrounded by manicured grounds and ancient trees, with facilities for Portia's horses and all the amenities a celebrity couple could desire. It was the kind of place that Americans fantasize about when they imagine British country life Downton Abbey, without the inconvenient history or the aristocratic responsibilities. When we decided to live here full-time, Ellen explained in one of her rare interviews about the move, we knew that Portia couldn't live without her horses. We needed a home that had a horse facility and pastures for them. The home also has plenty of space for their 2 puppies and their older dog. The statement was telling. It focused entirely on practical logistics, animals, space, facilities, rather than any deeper cultural or political motivation. The move seemed perfect on paper, a fairy tale relocation that ticked every box. Britain had a Labour government under Keir Starmer that aligned perfectly with their progressive politics. The National Health Service, despite its well-documented problems, could be praised as morally superior to America's healthcare system. British culture offered sophistication, history, and a certain intellectual cachet that California, for all its charms, sometimes lacked. Plus, there was a delicious irony. As Meghan Markle fled Britain for California, Ellen would flee California for Britain. It must have seemed almost poetic, but there was a crucial detail that Ellen may have overlooked in her enthusiasm, a warning sign she should have heeded. Meghan hadn't just left Britain, she had fled it. She hadn't chosen California as a lovely alternative, she had escaped to it as a sanctuary from what she portrayed as an oppressive, racist institution. Meghan's narrative about Britain had been overwhelmingly negative, cold, unwelcoming, institutionally cruel, and hostile to outsiders, particularly women of color. Yet here was Ellen, voluntarily choosing what Meghan had desperately escaped. It was as if someone had watched a horror movie about a haunted house and thought, that looks like a nice place to live. By July 2024, just months after acquiring Kitesbridge Farm for an undisclosed amount rumored to be over £20 million, Ellen and Portia put the property back on the market for £22.5 million. The stated reason was straightforward. They had found an even better property, another hilltop mansion with superior horse facilities for Portia's equestrian pursuits. The new property offered more land, better stabling, and improved amenities. But insiders were already beginning to wonder if the rapid property changes signaled something deeper than real estate perfectionism. Was this restlessness a sign that the British dream wasn't quite living up to expectations? Were Ellen and Portia already discovering that you can't buy your way into cultural belonging, no matter how many properties you purchase? The November 2024 election became the perfect catalyst for Ellen to publicly cement her commitment to Britain while simultaneously avoiding any appearance of retreat. When Trump won decisively on November 5, 2024, defeating Kamala Harris in what many progressives saw as a devastating blow, Ellen's declaration that we're staying here made international headlines. It was framed as courageous, principled, and admirably consistent. Major media outlets covered her statement. The Guardian ran a sympathetic piece about celebrities following through on their threats to leave. The BBC interviewed expats about Americans moving to Britain post-election. Ellen was positioned as the celebrity who actually meant what she said, who put her life where her politics were, who demonstrated real commitment rather than empty Twitter outrage. For a brief moment, Ellen's tarnished reputation got a polish. Here was proof that she still had principles, that beneath the workplace toxicity allegations was someone willing to sacrifice comfort for conviction. The narrative was powerful, redemptive even. But within weeks, everything would change. The British winter arrived, dark and cold and unrelenting, and with it came the slow, dawning realization that Ellen DeGeneres had made a spectacular mistake. At the heart of Ellen's British misadventure lies a tangled web of relationships that would ultimately pull her back across the Atlantic. Threads of friendship, marriage, and celebrity culture that proved stronger than political conviction. None was more significant than her friendship with Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, who had become Montecito's most famous and controversial resident. Ellen and Meghan's friendship predates royal headlines, Netflix deals, and international scandal. The two women first connected in the mid-2010s, bonding over shared experiences as women in the public eye, progressive values, and a mutual understanding of life under intense public scrutiny. But their relationship took on new symbolic meaning when their paths seemed to mirror each other in reverse, like two people passing on a bridge, going in opposite directions. In January 2020, Meghan and Prince Harry announced their intention to step back from royal duties, a decision that would become known worldwide as Megxit. The term was coined by British tabloids, playing on Brexit, and it captured the shock and betrayal many Britons felt. Here was an American actress who had married into their royal family and was now taking their beloved prince away, or so the narrative went. On March 31, 2020, Meghan and Harry officially exited royal life, giving up their HRH titles and royal patronages. By summer 2020, in the midst of COVID-19 lockdowns, they had settled permanently in Montecito, California, just 90 miles north of Los Angeles. The exclusive enclave, home to celebrities like Oprah Winfrey, offered them everything Britain hadn't: privacy, sunshine, American freedom, and crucially, distance from the British press they blamed for their misery. Their Montecito estate cost £11 million and sprawled across 7.4 acres, featuring 9 bedrooms, 16 bathrooms, a pool, tennis court, and every luxury imaginable. It was California dreaming made manifest, a compound where they could control their narrative, raise their children away from royal protocol, and build their brand on their own terms. But Meghan hadn't just quietly departed Britain, she had scorched the earth on her way out. On March 7, 2021, in an interview with Oprah Winfrey that drew 17.1 million viewers in America and 11.1 million in the UK, Meghan painted Britain, and specifically the royal family, in the darkest possible colors. She spoke of feeling isolated, unsupported by the royal institution, and targeted by racist British media. She revealed struggles with suicidal thoughts. "I just didn't want to be alive anymore," Meghan confessed to Oprah, her voice breaking with emotion, Harry sitting beside her holding her hand. "And that was a very clear and real and frightening constant thought." She described asking the royal institution for help with her mental health and being refused because it wouldn't be good for the institution. She also made explosive claims about racism within the royal family, alleging that there had been concerns and conversations about how dark her son Archie's skin might be when he was born. The accusation sent shockwaves around the world, triggering an international conversation about racism, monarchy, and whether these ancient institutions could survive in modern multicultural societies. The interview portrayed Britain as cold, unwelcoming, and institutionally cruel. Meghan described feeling trapped, surveilled, and gaslit. She painted a picture of a country where an American woman, particularly a biracial American woman, could never truly belong, where the press would hound her relentlessly, and where the very institution she'd married into would offer no protection. Yet here was Ellen, just 4 years later, voluntarily choosing to live in the very country Meghan had fled. The irony wasn't lost on observers, particularly in Britain, where Ellen's move was viewed with skepticism, amusement, and more than a little irritation. British commentators openly questioned Ellen's judgment. If Britain was so terrible that it drove Meghan Markle to suicidal thoughts, why would another American celebrity think she'd fare better? What Ellen may not have fully appreciated was how deeply Meghan's relationship with Britain had soured, and how that sourness extended to Harry as well. While Meghan enjoyed Montecito's perpetual sunshine, celebrity neighbors who understood her world, and distance from British tabloids, reports suggested that Harry was struggling. Multiple sources claimed he missed his old life, his friends, his military connections, his role within the royal family, his country. "Harry is a fish out of water in California," royal biographer Tom Quinn told media outlets. "He misses his old life terribly, but he can't go back. The bridges have been burned." Harry was reportedly trapped not by geography but by circumstance, by the Netflix deals and Spotify contracts, now canceled, and published memoirs that made any return to royal life impossible. Ellen's reverse journey was beginning to mirror Harry's situation in uncomfortable ways. Both had made grand public gestures, Harry with his memoir Spare and endless interviews, Ellen with her Trump-fleeing declarations. Both were discovering that public declarations create their own prisons. Sources close to both women suggest that Meghan was quietly skeptical of Ellen's British adventure from the start. Having experienced British weather, media scrutiny, social isolation, and cultural adjustment firsthand, Meghan understood exactly what Ellen was getting herself into. She knew the reality beneath the picturesque Cotswolds surface, the claustrophobic village life where everyone knows your business, the brutal winters that drain your soul, the subtle British class system that makes true acceptance nearly impossible for wealthy American newcomers. But Meghan didn't discourage her friend publicly. Perhaps she recognized that some lessons can only be learned through experience, that warning someone about touching a hot stove isn't as effective as letting them feel the burn. Or perhaps she simply knew that Ellen, like many Americans, had a romanticized view of Britain that could only be dispelled by actually living there. When news broke of Ellen's impending return, Meghan's reaction was reportedly sympathetic but unsurprised. "I could have told her," one source claimed Meghan said to friends, "Britain looks beautiful in photographs, but living there is something else entirely, especially if you're used to California." The relationship between Ellen and her wife Portia also played a crucial role in the decision to return to California, revealing tensions that money and countryside mansions couldn't resolve. Portia de Rossi, despite being born in Australia and therefore more culturally similar to Britain than America, had fully embraced California life during their decades together. Portia had changed her name at age 15, inspired by characters from Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice, Portia, and Julius Caesar. Portia de Rossi, suggesting ancient Rome. She understood reinvention, transformation, and the search for a place to belong. She had built her identity as a California person, complete with the state's casual attitude, health-conscious lifestyle, and entertainment industry connections. But Portia's career had largely stalled since the end of Arrested Development in 2019 and her recurring role in Scandal, which ended in 2018. She hadn't had a significant acting role in years. Being in Britain, 5,000 miles away from Hollywood's ecosystem, made any potential return to acting significantly more challenging, perhaps impossible. Portia wants to act again, the source told the Mail on Sunday, revealing a tension that Ellen's millions couldn't solve. It wasn't about money, they had more than enough. It was about purpose, identity, and the career that Portia had put on hold to support Ellen through her controversies, and now this British experiment. Acting opportunities don't come to actresses in their 50s living in the Cotswolds. They come to actresses in Los Angeles and New York who are available for auditions, who maintain relationships with casting directors, who can show up for meetings on short notice. Every month in British exile was a month Portia's industry connections weakened, a month her name became more forgotten. The couple's relationship with their British neighbors was reportedly cordial but distant, illustrating a fundamental cultural disconnect. The Cotswolds, while home to many wealthy individuals, including members of the British establishment, isn't particularly welcoming to flashy celebrity culture. The area values discretion above all else, tradition over innovation, and a certain understated British reserve that can feel cold to outgoing Americans accustomed to California friendliness. British culture, particularly upper-class British culture in areas like the Cotswolds, operates on centuries-old social codes that outsiders struggle to penetrate. There's a formality, a distance, a way of being polite while simultaneously making clear that you'll never truly belong. Americans often mistake British politeness for friendship, only to discover later that they've been kept at arm's length all along. Ellen's personality, naturally warm, talkative, and accustomed to being the center of attention, may have clashed with the more reserved British sensibility. In California, Ellen was royalty, an entertainment queen with a court of celebrity friends, industry figures, and devoted fans. In the Cotswolds, she was just another wealthy American, albeit a famous one, living in a big house and making little impact on the established social order. The relationship that ultimately proved most decisive was Ellen's connection to her California friend group. These weren't just casual acquaintances or industry contacts. These were decades-long friendships forged in the fires of Hollywood success and scandal, relationships that had survived Ellen's coming out, her career wilderness years, her triumphant comeback, and even the workplace toxicity allegations. Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Portia's former Arrested Development castmates, and yes, Meghan Markle. These were the women who understood Ellen's world, who shared her experiences, who could finish her sentences and laugh at inside jokes going back years or even decades. Their absence created a void that no amount of British countryside beauty could fill. They missed their friends, the source revealed, a simple statement that carried profound weight about human nature and what really matters. Friendship, it turns out, isn't something you can replicate by moving to a new country and meeting new people. Real friendship requires shared history, proximity, time, and the kind of deep understanding that only comes from weathering life's storms together. There's also the unspoken reality of Ellen's relationship with her public image and career prospects. After the workplace controversy that ended her show in 2022, Ellen needed rehabilitation, not isolation. Being in California, close to industry connections, media opportunities, and the machinery of public relations, offered pathways to redemption that Britain simply couldn't provide. Every month in British isolation was a month away from potential projects, reconciliations, and career rebuilding. Ellen couldn't rebuild her American entertainment career from the Cotswolds any more than she could rebuild trust with her former staff through occasional transatlantic phone calls. Redemption requires presence, and presence requires proximity. Portia, fiercely protective of Ellen through all the controversies, may have also recognized that Britain was becoming a gilded cage rather than a sanctuary. What had seemed like a dignified retreat was starting to feel like voluntary exile. And exile, no matter how beautiful the surroundings, is still exile. The relationship between Ellen and Britain itself was perhaps the most fraught of all. Britain didn't ask for Ellen DeGeneres. Unlike Meghan, who married into the royal family and therefore had a legitimate, if complicated, connection to the country, Ellen was simply an American celebrity who decided to live there. She arrived with American expectations, American attitudes, and American levels of demonstrative emotion that can seem excessive to reserved Britons. The British public, already exhausted by Meghan and Harry's ongoing complaints about British life delivered from their California mansion via Netflix documentaries and Oprah interviews, had little patience for another American celebrity treating their country as a political statement. There was a sense of, here we go again, another wealthy American discovering that Britain isn't the fantasy land they imagined. British commentators were particularly harsh when news of Ellen's retreat broke. "We do not want you here," wrote Dan Wootton, capturing a sentiment shared by many. "Don't slam the door on your way out." The message was clear. Britain wasn't interested in being anyone's political theater or temporary landing spot. If you're going to come here, commit. If you can't handle one winter, don't bother coming at all. The relationship that had promised so much Ellen's imagined love affair with an idealized Britain had revealed itself as a fantasy built on political posturing rather than genuine cultural affinity. Britain in reality was cold, dark, socially complex, and indifferent to American celebrity. It wasn't cruel, exactly. It just didn't care about Ellen the way California had always cared about Ellen. The winter of 2024 brought more than just cold weather to Ellen and Portia's Cotswolds mansion. It brought a psychological reckoning, a slow dawning awareness that they had made a terrible mistake, and the painful process of admitting it to themselves and then to their friends. British winters are legendary for their ability to break the spirit of sun-accustomed foreigners, and the winter of 2024 to 2025 was proving particularly brutal. It's not just the temperature, though December temperatures hovering around 2 to 7 degrees Celsius, or 36 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit, are certainly a shock for Californians used to mild winters where 15 degrees Celsius, or 60 degrees Fahrenheit, is considered cold. It's everything about the season that wears you down. The grayness is what gets you first. British winters are gray in a way that Californians simply can't imagine until they experience it. The sky is gray, the light is gray. Even the air feels gray. The sun, when it appears at all, is weak and watery, offering no warmth, just a pale reminder that somewhere above the clouds, daylight theoretically exists. Then there's the early darkness. By 4 p.m. in December, night has fallen. If you work indoors during the day and Ellen and Portia had no jobs requiring them to leave the house, you could easily go days without seeing actual daylight. You wake up in darkness, and by the time you've had breakfast and checked emails, what little daylight exists is already fading. The damp is the final psychological assault. British damp isn't like rain in other places. It doesn't pour dramatically and then clear. It seeps, it persists, it gets into your bones, your clothes, your house. Everything feels slightly wet, slightly cold, slightly unwelcoming. Heating helps, but you can never quite escape the feeling that moisture is everywhere, waiting to make you uncomfortable. For Ellen and Portia, the winter became a daily reminder of everything they'd left behind in California. In Montecito, December means temperatures in the comfortable 15 to 20 degrees Celsius range, or the 60s Fahrenheit, blue skies overhead, and outdoor brunches with friends where you might need a light sweater at most. In the Cotswolds, December means huddling indoors, fires burning constantly in multiple fireplaces, and a profound sense of isolation. They can't take the winters over there, the source revealed, a statement that captured not just physical discomfort but genuine psychological toll. The winter darkness, the social isolation, and the distance from everything familiar had created a perfect storm of regret, a daily wearing down of resolve that Ellen had thought was unshakable. The turning point came in early December 2024, just weeks after Ellen's triumphant declaration that they were staying in Britain for Trump's entire presidency. Friends noticed a change in Ellen's tone during phone calls. The enthusiasm was gone, replaced by complaints about the weather, about missing California, about feeling disconnected from her life. According to insiders, Ellen confided in close friends about her true feelings during what must have been wine-fueled late-night conversations. She had been putting on a brave face publicly, posting carefully curated images of British countryside life on social media, beautiful photos of morning frost, their horses in misty fields, cozy fires in the drawing room. Each image was designed to project contentment, to show that her political stand was backed by genuine happiness. But privately, Ellen was miserable. The isolation was getting to her. The darkness was affecting her mood. The cold seeped into everything. And most critically, she was realizing that no amount of principle was worth being this consistently unhappy. Politics, it turned out, was a poor substitute for comfort, friendship, and familiar surroundings. Ellen was very clear that they're coming back to California sooner rather than later, the source told the Mail on Sunday, revealing that Ellen had crossed the Rubicon from doubt to decision. This wasn't just complaining or venting, this was planning. Ellen was actively preparing her exit strategy, figuring out how to retreat while minimizing embarrassment. The response to this news was swift and decisive, particularly from conservative British commentators who had been skeptical of Ellen's move from the beginning. They seized on the revelation with barely concealed glee, seeing it as vindication of everything they'd been saying about celebrity virtue signaling and performative politics. Dan Wootton, a conservative media personality known for his outspoken views, delivered a blistering commentary on his show, "Bye-bye. Don't slam the door on your way out. Please don't come back, Ellen. Definitely don't come back, Portia de Rossi." This is so infuriating, isn't it? When these loovies say, "Oh, we're going to come to the UK because we hate Donald Trump so much," and then after one winter, pack it in. You're pathetic. You're pathetic virtue signalers. We do not want you here. The word loovies, British slang for actors and performers perceived as pretentious or left-wing, was deployed with particular venom. Wootton was speaking for a significant portion of Britain that resented being used as a political prop by wealthy American celebrities who had no genuine connection to the country. Social media erupted with even harsher commentary. British Twitter, never shy about mocking perceived American arrogance, had a field day. "One British winter and Ellen's running back to mummy," wrote one user. "Ellen lasted longer in Britain than Liz Truss lasted as PM, so there's that," joked another, referencing the former Prime Minister's disastrous 44-day tenure. The memes were brutal. Images of Ellen's smiling face superimposed on runners fleeing scenes of disaster, comparisons to other celebrities who'd threatened to leave America but never did, or quickly returned. The phrase "reverse Megxit" began trending, perfectly capturing the symmetry of the situation. American conservative commentators were equally scathing, seeing Ellen's retreat as proof that liberal celebrities are all talk and no substance. "Couldn't handle one British winter," wrote one prominent conservative account. "So much for principle over comfort. Elite liberals in a nutshell." Even some progressive outlets struggled to defend Ellen. The optics were simply indefensible. Here was a wealthy celebrity who had made a grand political gesture, received international praise for her courage and commitment, and then retreated at the first sign of genuine discomfort. It played into every negative stereotype about Hollywood elites that they're performative, superficial, and fundamentally disconnected from the principles they claim to hold dear. The comparison to Meghan and Harry's Megxit was immediate, brutal, and in many ways, perfectly apt. Both situations involved wealthy celebrities making dramatic public declarations, receiving massive media attention, and then discovering that reality was more complicated than their rhetoric suggested. Conservative commentators particularly enjoyed the parallel. Just as Harry has learned the hard way that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, so has Ellen DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi, in all honesty, noted panel guests on British shows. The comparison highlighted something uncomfortable. Both Megxit and the reverse Megxit were stories about people who thought geography could solve problems that were actually internal, personal, and unfixable through relocation. But there was a crucial difference that made Ellen's situation even more embarrassing. Harry, for all his faults and poor decisions, had actually given up something significant. His royal role, his military appointments, his place in the succession, his relationship with his family. He had sacrificed, genuinely. Even if many viewed those sacrifices as self-inflicted wounds, Ellen, by contrast, had given up nothing. She'd already ended her show. Her reputation was already damaged. Moving to Britain hadn't required any real sacrifice, just money to buy property, which she had in abundance. And now she was retreating without having endured even a fraction of what Meghan claimed to have endured in Britain, or what Harry was reportedly enduring in his California exile. Meghan Markle, meanwhile, was reportedly preparing to welcome her friend back with a mixture of sympathy and vindication. Sources claimed Meghan felt validated by Ellen's experience. "I told her it was hard," Meghan allegedly said to friends. "Britain looks beautiful in photographs, but living there when you're used to California is brutal." One commentator joked, "I'm sure that Megxit, as we speak, is already preparing a hamper of goodies with spreads and flower sprinkles and all that Instagram nonsense to welcome Ellen back to Montecito." The image was both absurd and somehow perfectly fitting, two California celebrities reuniting after Ellen's failed attempt to live in the country. Meghan had fled. The public response was particularly harsh because Ellen's move had always felt performative rather than principled. Real political refugees don't put their 48-acre estates on the market after a few months. Real expatriates don't complain about missing the warm weather and their friends. Real commitment doesn't crumble at the first British winter. Ellen's retreat proved what critics had suspected all along. The move was never about principle. It was about making a statement, and once the statement had been made, the discomfort wasn't worth maintaining the fiction. "Make sure you close the door on your way out when you go back to California," British commentators advised with dripping sarcasm, their satisfaction palpable. Ellen had tried to make Britain her political theater, and Britain was responding with the curtness it reserves for uninvited guests who overstay their welcome and then complain about the accommodations. The turning point also revealed something uncomfortable about modern celebrity culture: the gap between public principles and private comfort, between political statements and actual sacrifice, between what celebrities say they'll do and what they actually will endure. Ellen had discovered what many before her had learned: running away from your problems doesn't solve them, whether those problems are political, personal, or reputational. Britain wasn't the problem. Trump wasn't the problem. Ellen's inability to find genuine fulfillment beyond comfortable circumstances and familiar faces, that was the real issue. And that's not something geography can fix. As December 2024 wore on, Ellen's plans to return became more concrete. Friends revealed she was already reaching out to California contacts, exploring property options back in Montecito, and laying the groundwork for re-establishing her American life. The holidays would provide perfect cover. They could claim they were just visiting for Christmas and then simply stay. The legacy of Ellen's reverse Megxit extends far beyond one celebrity's failed relocation experiment. It represents a broader cultural moment, a reckoning with performative politics and celebrity virtue signaling that has defined the past tumultuous decade of American public life. Even in her hasty retreat, even in her embarrassment, Ellen's impact on the conversation about celebrity political activism cannot be understated. Her very public failure has become a cautionary tale, a modern fable about the dangers of confusing political gestures with genuine commitment, of mistaking statements for sacrifice. The voice of skepticism toward celebrity political pronouncements has lived on, amplified, and validated by Ellen's example. When celebrities now threaten to leave America over political outcomes, the immediate response from a significant portion of the public is simply, "Remember Ellen?" It's become shorthand for empty threats and performative outrage, a two-word reminder that talk is cheap and British winters are long. This cultural shift matters. For years, celebrity political activism enjoyed a kind of protected status in progressive circles. Celebrities speaking out on political issues were celebrated as brave, using their platforms for good, amplifying important messages. Criticism of celebrity activism was often dismissed as cynicism or anti-intellectualism. But Ellen's reverse Megxit has given skeptics ammunition and validation. It's proof, they argue, that Hollywood celebrities are fundamentally disconnected from the realities ordinary people face, that their politics are performative rather than principled, that they view countries like Britain as props in their personal narratives rather than places with their own cultures, histories, and citizens who might resent being treated as supporting characters. These lovies say these things and then realize they actually have to live with the consequences, noted British political analysts. capturing a sentiment that extends well beyond Ellen's specific situation. The gap between celebrity life and ordinary experience has perhaps never been more starkly illustrated than by Ellen purchasing a £22.5 million estate, living there for months, and then abandoning it because she missed the California weather. Most people can't escape to another country when their preferred candidate loses. Most people can't abandon expensive properties on a whim. Most people can't decide that winter is simply too unpleasant and therefore relocate 5,000 miles back to sunshine. Ellen's privilege, so evident in every aspect of this saga, undermines any claim to political principle. You can't be a hero of the resistance when you're primarily concerned with warm weather and proximity to your celebrity friends. But there's a more nuanced legacy as well, one that speaks to something deeply human beyond politics. Ellen's experience inadvertently validated concerns about the challenges of cultural transition, the importance of community, and the psychological toll of isolation. These are real issues that affect everyone from refugees to expatriates to anyone who's ever moved far from home. Meghan Markle's claims about struggling in Britain had been dismissed by many as exaggerated or even fabricated, but Ellen's experience, different in nature but similar in ultimate outcome, suggested that perhaps adjusting to British life really is genuinely difficult for Americans, particularly Americans accustomed to California sunshine, American social norms, and the constant validation that comes from celebrity status in Hollywood. This doesn't excuse Meghan's more controversial claims about racism and institutional cruelty, but it does validate the basic proposition that Britain and America, despite sharing a language, are profoundly different places to live. The weather matters, the social norms matter, the distance from your support system matters. These are human truths that transcend politics. The comparison to Meghan and Harry has created a lasting narrative framework that royal commentators and political analysts will use for years. They now speak of the Montecito effect, the tendency of wealthy celebrities to cluster in exclusive enclaves where they can maintain their political identity without actually sacrificing any comfort or convenience. Montecito, population about 9,000, has become a symbol of something larger: champagne, socialism, limousine liberalism, the kind of progressive politics that's all theory and no practice. Montecito is where Ellen fled back to. It's where Meghan fled to from Britain. It's where Oprah lives, conducting interviews about struggles and adversity from her $100 million estate. It's where celebrities can advocate for progressive causes, higher taxes on the rich, more social programs, environmental regulations, while living in extraordinary privilege insulated from the consequences of those policies. Ellen's reverse Megxit has made Montecito a punchline, shorthand for the disconnect between celebrity progressivism and actual sacrifice. Oh, you care so much about the issue that you're moving to Montecito to think about it has become a form of mockery that cuts deep because it contains truth. Ellen's legacy is also visible in how Britain views American celebrities and political statements. The patience for celebrity political tourism has completely evaporated. Before Ellen, there might have been some benefit of the doubt, some willingness to believe that these relocations were genuine. Now, the prevailing British sentiment is, don't come here making political statements when you have no real intention of staying. Britain doesn't want to be anyone's political prop, anyone's escape plan, anyone's temporary Instagram backdrop. The country has its own challenges, its own politics, its own culture that existed long before American celebrities discovered it and will continue long after they leave. Ellen's failed experiment has hardened British attitudes toward American celebrity immigrants. Steph, the alt-nerd, a political commentator on British media, captured this sentiment perfectly when discussing Ellen's retreat. "I don't want her to return. I don't think we need her ilk actually over here." The phrase "her ilk" speaks volumes. Celebrity virtue signalers who treat other countries as escape plans rather than homes, who arrive with fanfare and leave with excuses. The legacy extends to Ellen's own reputation as well, adding another unfortunate chapter to a story of someone whose public image and private reality seem perpetually misaligned. Having already weathered the workplace toxicity scandal that ended her show in 2022, this British misadventure becomes part of a larger pattern, saying one thing publicly while living a very different private reality. The be kind persona masked alleged workplace cruelty. The political conviction masked simple discomfort with winter. The image of principled resistance masked privileged retreat. Each revelation adds to a picture of someone struggling with authenticity, someone whose brand was always more important than substance. There's a human element to this legacy that deserves acknowledgement. Ellen's experience reminds us, perhaps uncomfortably, that belonging isn't purchased, it's earned through time, relationships, and genuine connection to place. You can't buy your way into cultural affinity, no matter how many 20 million pound properties you acquire or how many horses you stable. Community is built, not bought. This is a lesson that extends well beyond celebrity culture. It speaks to anyone who's ever thought that moving somewhere new would solve their problems, that geography could provide answers that internal work cannot. Ellen discovered what many expatriates eventually learn. You take yourself with you wherever you go, and if you're not happy with yourself, no amount of relocation will fix it. The friendship between Ellen and Meghan has become symbolic of a certain type of elite American liberal experience. Talking endlessly about leaving America, actually leaving, and then discovering that everywhere else has its own challenges, that the problems you're running from are internal rather than external. Their shared Montecito address is less a zip code than a state of mind, wealthy, politically progressive, geographically Californian, but somehow existing outside the normal constraints that govern ordinary lives. Even in her physical absence from Britain, Ellen's brief tenure there will be remembered, not fondly, but as a cautionary tale. It won't be remembered as a brave political stand or a successful relocation. It will be remembered as an expensive mistake that validated every critic who had always suspected celebrity political threats were empty posturing. It will be remembered as proof that virtue signaling, no matter how public or expensive, eventually collides with reality. The voice of skepticism that Ellen helped amplify lives on in every political cycle, every election threat, every celebrity pronouncement about fleeing America if their candidate loses. Okay, the response now goes, barely concealing mockery, but will you actually leave? And if you do, will you last even one British winter? Or will you pull an Ellen and come running back to California when you realize that political theater is one thing, but actually living your convictions is quite another? This legacy, more than any award or accolade Ellen earned during her talk show years, may be what she's ultimately remembered for. The cautionary tale of what happens when you confuse political gestures with actual commitment, when you use other countries as props in your personal narrative, when you discover that British winters are cold and California friendships are warm, and that maybe, just maybe, you never really cared about the politics as much as you claimed to. So what does Ellen's reverse Megxit really tell us about celebrity culture, political conviction, authenticity, and the eternal human search for belonging in an increasingly polarized world? Perhaps it tells us that running away doesn't solve fundamental problems of purpose, identity, and fulfillment. Ellen's issues weren't geographic, they were personal, professional, and reputational. Britain couldn't fix what was broken any more than California had prevented what went wrong with her show. The problems followed her because the problems were internal, and no amount of countryside beauty or political righteousness could solve them. Perhaps it tells us that friendship and community matter more than we want to admit, even in our supposedly interconnected digital age. Ellen discovered what many before her have learned, that FaceTime calls and social media connections can't replace actually being near the people who know and love you, who share your history, who can show up at your door when you need them. Community isn't digital. It's physical, temporal, and irreplaceable. Perhaps it tells us that political convictions need to run deeper than headline-grabbing relocations and Instagram-worthy countryside photos. Real values are tested by discomfort and proved through sustained commitment, not demonstrated through expensive property purchases and dramatic public declarations. If your political conviction evaporates at the first British winter, what was it really worth? Perhaps it tells us that there's actually a kind of honesty, however uncomfortable, in admitting mistakes. Ellen could have stubbornly remained in Britain, miserable but maintaining the fiction. Instead, she's returning to California, implicitly acknowledging that the British adventure was misguided. The shame isn't in coming home. The shame is in pretending you're not miserable when you are, in maintaining political theater at the cost of genuine happiness. Or perhaps it tells us something more universal about the human condition, that we're all searching for a place that feels like home, that sometimes we need to leave to appreciate what we had, that comfort and community and familiar surroundings matter more than we want to admit, especially when we're trying to prove political points. As Ellen and Portia prepare to return to Montecito, to reunite with Meghan and their California circle, to feel warm sunshine on their faces again and sleep past 4 p.m. darkness, we're left with uncomfortable questions about authenticity, privilege, and what we're really looking for when we talk about escape. What do you think? Was Ellen's British move a genuine attempt at a new life? Or was it always just performative politics designed to grab headlines and rebrand her image after workplace scandals? Could any of us, if we're honest, really leave behind everything familiar: friends, weather, community, comfort for the sake of political principle? And what does it say about our current political moment that so many celebrities threaten to leave America, but so few actually stay gone when they discover that other countries are cold, different, and indifferent to their celebrity status? Is there something admirable in Ellen's willingness to admit the mistake and come home? Or does her quick retreat prove that the whole thing was never serious? And what does her experience tell us about Meghan Markle's claims about Britain? Were they valid all along, or are we comparing fundamentally different situations? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us whether you think Ellen will actually follow through on returning to California, or whether this is just more performative politics. Let us know if you've ever moved somewhere for idealistic reasons only to discover that reality doesn't match fantasy. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into celebrity political theater, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories about the fascinating, often absurd intersection of fame, power, politics, and human nature. Because in the end, Ellen's reverse Megxit isn't just about one celebrity's failed relocation. It's not even just about celebrity culture or political virtue signaling. It's about all of us, what we say we value versus what we actually need, the eternal human quest for a place that feels like home, and the painful but necessary lesson that you can't run away from yourself, no matter how many countries you try. Ellen discovered that Britain wasn't the answer. California probably isn't either. The answer, if there is one, lies in the harder work of finding peace with yourself, building genuine community wherever you are, and having the courage to be honest about what really matters to you, even when that honesty makes you look foolish or privileged or hypocritical. That's a lesson worth far more than any £22.5 million Cotswolds estate. Whether Ellen learns, it remains to be seen.